Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the Instagood Show. Glad to be with you today. My name is Seth, and if you want to follow me on Instagram, it is at Seth Muse. Pretty easy to find, or you can just go to sethmuse.com, see all my stuff. But today on the Instagood Show, I have some good stuff for you to help your church get Instagood at Instagram, and I can't wait for this. So as we get started here today, I want to tell you that it is not too late to still get the InstaSummit later pass. So I want to make sure I mention that. And as we, you can still get all those sessions and everything for the InstaSummit and watch those. And you can watch those with your staff and share those with people that are on your team that need to watch some of it together as a team is really a cool way to use that thing. So anyway, today, let's get into it. We've got major takeaways from the InstaSummit I wanted to share. I had the privilege of watching every single one of these talks multiple times because I edited them and made sure they worked. So having seen them all, I have a roundish view of what some of the big common themes were that were mentioned quite a bit. And I wanted to share those with you. There's 6 of them that I basically felt like these were the big takeaways out of the summit. And, again, go watch them. They're great. The first one I wanted to mention, and I didn't make slides for these, so they're not going to come across the bottom or anything like that. So sorry about that. I'm swamped right now. Thank God with work. So I wanted to come to you and still share this with you. But number 1, Instagram is personal. And we learned a lot of different ways that Instagram can be used to be personal, whether that's direct messages, voice memos, things that you can do in DMs, things you can do with live, IGTV, how to make content that is personal. That was a big theme through the whole summit where every speaker said something to the effect of making a connection, making it personal, making it feel like you know each other, focusing on the relationship, relational content. All of that stuff was a big part. A big part of the summit. And that was a common theme through the whole thing. So make Instagram personal is a goal that we should set for when we're going forward with our Instagram content and what we're making. Second, number 2, stories are where it's at. And we talked a lot about stories, and I think many of us at the church, in the church world, we find it kind of we understand the feed. We understand how you can create for the feed. It functions like a Facebook feed in a lot of ways. So creating content for that, we've done that the longest. That made sense, right? So we kind of get that, but even then, I'd say we're not really doing that super well. But for the most part, we could do that better. But what we kind of discovered through the questions and other things that were coming in were that many churches are just doing the feed. They're not creating stories. And if they are, it's very sporadic, don't really have a strategy for it, don't really know how to use them. And that was one of the things about the summit. I was really thankful that most of our speakers focused on, to some degree, how to use stories to connect, because that's where you get a lot of those personal contacts on Instagram, is by engaging in story content with stickers and polls and questions and all the other things that go into your DMs. And it's just a great system they've set up that kind of bypasses the feed. So it's almost like there's stories Instagram and there's feed Instagram, and they're almost 2 separate platforms that, kind of work almost independent of each other. Now they've made some connections that are really, really good. I'll talk about that in a second. But I think that focusing on stories for you is a good move, be a good move going forward. And one of the questions is always like, why should I focus on that? We got this question several times. Why should we focus on creating content that only lasts 24 hours? And I'll just tell you this. My answer to that question, it was in one of the Q&A videos that I did. Why focus on content that only lasts 24 hours? How long do you think the other content you make lasts? That's the first question. How long do you think that your posts on Facebook really last? Maybe 24 hours, maybe. And then you need to post something else, right? It's about the same. So the fact that it disappears really isn't a relevant thing anymore, because whether they take the content down and can't be found, or it just won't be found are almost the same thing now, right? It's going so fast. It's almost the same thing. With some of these, you can still have it pop up. And I think one of the things that's really great to make content last, you want to last, highlights are a way for stories to last a long time, to use those. And IGTV is another way to make content last for a long time. So those two connections are now a big part of Instagram stories. So think stories and how you're going to connect, because even the other part of that question I would answer is, even if they don't last more than 24 hours, the connections you can get go deeper, faster in stories than anything you would do on your feed. And there's potential there to do real ministry and to be in the real time. And that's valuable. So shorter lifespan, but deeper reach. That's why stories are worth investing in and thinking about and creating content for. So Instagram is personal. Stories are where it's at. Number 3, we've been overthinking social content. And it kind of goes into the face of like with stories, like, oh, we have to create like 15 of those versus one Instagram feed post for the day. Yeah, you don't have to go all out with the design and the 15 hours per story post kind of workflow. That is an area where you have some freedom to be personal and not overthink it. And we keep trying to come up with these strategies and these systems and these rule books. And at the end of the day, just be human on social media, and the content kind of creates itself in a way. And using user-generated content was a big part of this. It's like we've been overthinking social media content, that we have to create everything. Sharing user-generated content is super easy to do. Some of the highest engaging stuff you'll probably post more than anything you make, and highlights your people in a way that makes your content feel personal. So it hits a lot of those boxes. And when we're overthinking content, it's like we don't consider comments and direct messages and other people's content as content that we can steward over to our account. And so we've kind of been overthinking by underthinking it, I guess. It's a weird way of saying it. But we've been overthinking social content, and that we have to make it all. And it has to be fresh. It has to be brand new. Every single post has to be something we churned out that's fresh and brand. It doesn't have to be. You can find a good strategy that engages without doing that. Number 4, we're not using IG to its fullest potential. And it's kind of what I talked about with stories. We're not using stories. We're not really using some of the features available in DMs. Like you can send a 1-minute voice message response when someone messages you, which is more personal. You could even send a video response in DMs, which is more personal. And, that operates like a story. So you can send basically a series of 6 or 7 stories as a video in a response. And so all the things you could do on stories, you can do personally, one-to-one, in a response to somebody in your DMs on Instagram. Very cool, right? You can also call people in Instagram. Did you know that? You can video call people. I wouldn't just do that, but you can set up a whole lot, like it's messenger rooms has just come out from Facebook, and IG already did this, but they changed. You could only have 4 people in a call room in your DMs. Now you can have 8. So that's pretty cool. They don't fit on the screen very well, but you can have up to 8 and talk to people. And it's, it's what the cool kids are doing. So it's something to think about how you could use that for, you have 2 or 3 people commenting on something, you may want to group them together and have a little, so you don't have to say it more than once. I don't know how you would use that, but that's not as much a big a feature as the other 2. The voice messages and the video replies, big time personal stuff. We're not using stories to their advantage, to the potential, and we're not using live and IGTV, which leads me to this number 5. Live and IGTV have a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity there for us. A lot of things for the church to do now, especially that when you shoot, it used to be this, you shoot a live video, it's like 20 minutes long or whatever, and you can save it to your story for 24 hours and then it disappears. And so with a live video being so long and having such a short lifespan, it is hard to see the value in putting a lot of effort into that. But Instagram finally connected all these dots for us in the last 2 weeks, where if you go live on Instagram now, you have the opportunity to save that live video to the IGTV platform, and it can live on forever there. And also, once you save it to IGTV, there's no time limit. There's no 10-minute time limit if it's a live video. It just posts, and you can set a preview on your feed for people to click and go in and see the live video you did. Really cool. I'm so glad they finally did this, because man, it makes all that make sense finally for why we would care about that. But now that they're connected, IGTV and live have an opportunity for us to use longer form content, sermon clips that are a little bit longer, teaching videos that are a little bit longer, because they do the narrow, the tall format, and the widescreen and square formats. So it automatically adjusts to whatever content you put in it. So now that's a pretty dang powerful setup, is the live IGTV comment and feed combination. So they're trying to connect all these pathways for you to, if you can go from feed to an IGTV that was a live video. Dude, that's cool. Lot of opportunities for us there. Number 6, and this was a big one across the board in the conference. Influencer marketing was talked about a lot. We talked about using influencers. And when we hear that, we think celebrities. We got to get famous people to help us with that. And the overarching theme, Haley talked about this, Amy Cottle talked about this, and we actually had an influencer named Rochelle talk about how to work with influencers. Many others mentioned influencers and how to work with influencers. Influencer marketing is not just for big churches. It's not just for big churches with celebrities in them, that there are different levels of influencer. We even talked about how someone with a small amount of followers actually has more reach, more engagement in their content than someone with 10,000 followers, because of the way the algorithm works. And you can leverage these large, medium, and small influencers, macro, micro, I don't know what the third one was, micro influencers, and you can find a lot of good reach and engagement through those. You just have to identify them in your church. So those talks were really good to help us understand, like, I might have someone in my congregation, probably do, even if you're small, that has 4,000 or 5,000 followers. Somebody, and that might be the biggest one in your whole church, but that's valuable. Then you can work with that person to help you leverage content to their audience, to the people they influence. Maybe they're a local influencer, and some of those influencers are like the mayor, people who are in like official positions in your church, in your community, a coach, a teacher, school district official Instagram accounts, things like that people who are in your church might run or have some influence, and you be able to leverage that if you'll work with these influencers. So those talks were really good to help us understand how to do that. So 6 takeaways from the InstaSummit. Here we go. And then I'll get to the Q&A. Instagram's personal. Stories are where it's at. We've been overthinking social content. We're not using IG to its fullest potential. Live and IGTV have a lot of applications for us now. And influencer marketing is not just for big churches. So those are the big 6 takeaways that I found from the InstaSummit. How did you guys like that? I mean, tell me how the InstaSummit was for you. I'd love to hear about that in the comments. Tell me what you thought. Tell me what you loved about it. Tell me what we could do better. I would love to hear just your impression and how you're trying to put some of that to use, because we're thinking about, like, what are we going to do next, and was this beneficial and helpful for you? We feel like it was, but we'd love to hear some feedback from you guys and let us know. All right, so let's get into the Q&A. We'll fly through these pretty quick, but one of the questions that we asked was, do Instagram and Facebook have to be connected in order to run ads on Instagram? Yes and no. Yes, I believe now, yes, completely. You used to be able to promote, I think you can still promote a post natively on Instagram, but I think you have to set all that up in Facebook and connect it. It's it's a really, Facebook owns Instagram, and so they're trying to make everything simple, and by making it simple, Sometimes they make it more difficult, which I think is a little more difficult, but you do have to connect your business Instagram account to your business page in order to set up ad accounts and payment processes for Instagram. I'm gonna get some water. I'm dying. I have no idea why. All of a sudden, I can't talk. So if you want to run ads on Instagram, yes, you have to connect that to a Facebook page. All right, moving on. Many people talked about sharing things on Instagram, and I was kind of blown away how many times somebody asked, how do you share things on Instagram? And I thought, wow, that is super interesting that, there's confusion about that. So there's 3 ways. And the first way is if you want to share a feed post to your feed, it's a feed to feed share, you need a third party app, like a repost app. So you tap the little 3 dots in the top corner of the post you want to share, hit copy link. Then you open up your share app, like repost for Instagram, and it will be there. Then you tap that and it asks you want to open this post up in Instagram, and it opens up in your Instagram, and you're allowed to share and copy the caption and do all that stuff. So you'll have to have an app if you want to go feed to feed. Now, if you want to go from, you find a post on your feed that you want to share to your story, you can quickly do that with that. If you look at the heart that's there for likes, and then the comment icon that's there to make comments, and then right under the post, there's that little triangle. That triangle, when you hit that, that's the share button. So you can hit that, and it'll say, do you want to add this to your stories? The first option, hit add to story. It opens it up, and then you have all the story features available to you to put around that post, and then you can share it to your story. So that's feed to story. The third way to share on Instagram is from story to story. So this requires you to have, and all this requires you to have a public account, and whoever's account has to be public. So they have to have this turned on that you can actually share their posts. But in story to story, if you are tagged, oh, and one other thing, those other 2, you will not be notified when people do that. If someone shares your post from feed to feed or feed to story, unless they tag you in it, you will not be notified. Story to story, is that correct? I think that's correct. Check me on that. I think that's correct. Story to story, when someone tags you in their story, then it shows up in your DMs that someone tagged, and there's an option that says add this to your story. So then you can share what they shared from their story to your story. Hope that made sense. You do receive notifications when you share someone's story, because they are being tagged. You don't receive it the other 2. I think that's what it is. I'm pretty sure that's true. So if someone's sharing your feed out there, you're not going to know about it unless they tag you again, or that repost app automatically tags you and they don't erase it before they share it. So that's how you share to Instagram. And it is one of those things that if you can get people to share, it is very powerful for your reach and for your engagement. And I think a good Instagram post would be one of those carousel sliders that shows people how to share things on Instagram. Might be just a good post for your church. Hey, if you want to share content we put out on Instagram, here's how you do it. Swipe. First, you can share feed to feed. Second, you can share it, and you just kind of walk them through it and teach people how to do it, and your shares might go up. So you can share on Instagram, but apparently it's confusing, and you're right. It's confusing. There's multiple ways to do stuff. Isn't always a good idea. So you can share from Instagram. Yes. That was one of the questions. Let's do another one. How do you have a team that serves on Instagram? Like, how's that work? Because a lot of people were confused about, like, we can definitely put Instagram in a third-party scheduler like Buffer. I use Buffer, Hootsuite, Later, whatever you use. And, you can share automatically if your Instagram is a business account. It can automatically post to your feed. Stories are still going to be your notification stuff, but they can do it. But to your feed, you can automatically post both video and graphics if you pay for their higher tiers for video. So getting a team together, if you have a third-party scheduler like that, they can use that. Now, most of us have a team because we want them to capture content in the moment, so they need to have Instagram on their phone. And so the question is, how do I let someone post to our Instagram stories in the moment at events from a phone. And I think the real hidden question is, how do I not give people the password and still allow them to post to our Instagram? You can't. Facebook has roles and things like that for your Facebook page that limit what people can do. Instagram does not have that. You either have the password and can log in and do whatever you want to it, or you don't. So anyone that you ask to be on your Instagram team that's going to be posting stories, you need to trust them, and you need to actually train them really well. And you need to make sure that they have clear guidelines on what it is you want them to do, because you're going to have to give them the password. Right now on my phone, this is what's crazy. I have churches that I work for that I help with communications. And so I do remote communications with church comm team. And on that, whenever we start getting into all these social media things, it's like, yeah, I can schedule stuff. I can put it in Buffer, but I have to have the login. So on my phone, I can switch back and forth between my personal Instagram and one of the churches I serve at. And if I go in there and do anything crazy, I have that freedom. So they have to trust me to do it. And you can trust me, by the way, to do that. I'm not going to do anything nuts. But, we have some provisos for that. But that's what you have to do if you want somebody to help you with Instagram on your phone, to actually snap content in the moment. So a lot of people think there's got to be a way around it. There's not. There's not a way around it. And hopefully they'll come up with something soon. If you've heard rumors of that, please let me know. Drop that in the comments. I'd love to know what's happening. But I'd love to see roles on Instagram become a thing. We need it, because there are so many companies out there too that have agencies like mine, like 8-Bit Communications, like I run, that, I have to do the same thing for them. If I'm going to do anything for Instagram, I got to have their password. And it just would be really nice to be able to log in from a limited account, or something they could lock me out if they wanted to, that gives them full control, like an admin versus editor type thing. So hopefully they'll get that done. And then the last question I wanted to answer that was asked a lot is, how do we work with influencers? And I think the talks in the summit answered the question, like, what do they do and how should we think about them? But what we missed, I think, was, how do you actually contact them? And what do you tell them? And what's a good price? And, for what you want them to do. And I think the trick to that is that we don't quite realize that when working with influencers, all that's negotiable. So there really isn't an answer to that question. The best thing that you can do for an influencer is, once you've identified that influencer, figure out, what do you really want them to do for you? How do you want this relationship to work? Do you want them to post 3 times? Do you want them to post about certain products, or, well, not products? You're not a business mode there. If you want to post about events, or do you want them to visit your church and just talk about what they liked about it? What do you want them to do? You need to have a clear understanding, because they're not going to make it up for you. This is your deal. And I think when you reach out, here's what I did for the InstaSummit. I reached out to every speaker first on Instagram, because I didn't want you to speak at this summit if you're not going to be actually using the platform. That was an integrity move for me. I thought that was important. So if you are trying to get someone to an influencer who is like, I'm an Instagram person, and you ask them something on Instagram, they don't respond, that's a red flag for me. That's a red flag. So I would say, if you're looking for an Instagram influencer, the first thing you do is you reach out to them in DMs and you make it personal. And I would say, hey, I've got a proposition for you. I'd love to, and most of us, we're talking about people who are not like celebrity influencers, so they're going to respond. But you kind of just want to make sure you establish this pathway. Hey, I recognize that you have some influence on Instagram, and I would love to talk to you about this. Tell them what you're a brief, what you're wanting to do. And then here's what you do. Don't give everything away. Then record a voice message to them. Like, hey, I just sent you a message. This is Seth. I'm from the church, and we know each other or we don't. And we wanted to work with you on these projects. Would you have some time that we could get together and talk? I'm going to put my email down after this message in the direct messages, and I would love to talk with you. Or would you please respond and let me know how to get a hold of you via email? And then and then follow up if you don't hear back from them. But you've got to have a plan for those influencers, because their job is not to figure out how to market. Sorry, let me back that up. Their job is not how to figure out what it is you want done. Their job is to help you do it and leverage their audience and their expertise or their name, their face, whatever it is they do. And so if you're talking about people who have 500 followers in your church of 50, that's a big influencer. That person's probably not going to charge you things. So you can look at it like, hey, this is a ministry for our church, but if they ask for a fee, I think you should offer. I think you really should. But hey, we'll pay $25 a post, something like that. Whatever you feel is fair. And what's the worst they can do? Say no, ask for something else. I mean, you got to talk to them and see what they would do. This is a negotiation. Like I said, with influencers of all ranges, there's no real set amount and set way of doing it. It's a negotiation. You just got to talk to them and see what they say and negotiate a price and figure out what you want to do and come to them with a plan, and then they will help you. So the influencer marketing and how to do that was a good question, I think, because we think of them, influencers, as really famous celebrity types that probably wouldn't answer us. Just FYI, I posted today in my Instagram I found this guy named Adam Rose. I really don't know much about Adam Rose, but I found him on TikTok, and he's so funny. And he's apparently an actor. He has 64,000 followers on Instagram. I shared one of his TikToks to my story today. And then in the next slide, I said, the real Adam Rose is a whole mood and a very fun follow on TikTok. That's all I said. He shared that post and said, thanks, Seth, to me. Like, this guy, 64,000. They know how this works. They respond. People will do that kind of thing. So you never know till you try, man. You never know till you try. So give it a shot. Okay, so what I'd love to do next and last for next time is I would love to hear your questions about Instagram. If you went to the summit, or if you're just confused about how it starts, or maybe you're at a basic 101, no question is dumb. We have to keep moving forward, right? That's the old Walt Disney quote, keep moving forward. And with Instagram, we're going to keep moving forward. So hit those questions up in the comments, and I would love to answer those. Tag me so that I'll make sure to come back to it if it's later and you see this after it's actually live. And I'd love to help you figure that kind of stuff out. I may not have all the answers, but I can help. I'll help how I can. So thank you guys for watching the Instagood show. This is fun to do every week. I'll be back next Thursday with more Instagram content to help make your church Instagood and Instagram. Find me at sethmuse.com. I'll see you later. Bye.